My daughter barged into the room, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Who is father?" she demanded, her eyes burning into mine. I froze. The entire stakeholders' meeting room, filled with men in navy suits and women in pencil skirts, went quiet, so quiet that I swear I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner above us. My heart thudded so loudly in my chest, I was sure everyone could hear it too. At 83 years old, I thought I had seen every kind of storm life could throw at me. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for my only daughter standing in front of company board members, lawyers and investors, asking that question. I remember my hands trembling. I reached for the edge of the mahogany table to steady myself. For a moment, I thought I might collapse right there in front of them all. "Emily," I whispered, my voice cracking. But the words barely left my lips. The chairman at the end of the table cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. The shareholders exchanged glances, murmurs rising like an angry swarm of bees. My daughter's blonde hair was pulled back tightly, her green eyes wide with a mixture of rage and desperation. "Who is father?" she repeated, louder this time, slamming her palms down on the polished table. "Tell me the truth, Mom." I couldn't breathe. The room blurred at the edges, my vision tunneling. My chest felt heavy, my heart racing with every possible answer I could never give out loud. My secrets, buried for more than 60 years, were suddenly clawing their way to the surface. And right there, in that suffocating silence, I realized I was trapped. How could I explain to her in front of these people what even I had tried to erase from my own memory? How could I tell her that the man she grew up calling Dad wasn't her real father? The words refused to leave my mouth. My lips quivered, but only a shaky breath came out. Gasps rippled around the room. Emily's eyes glistened with tears, and for the first time since she was a child, she looked broken. That was when I felt it. A sharp pain in my chest. My legs buckled slightly under the weight of the moment. Someone at the far end of the table gasped and half rose to their feet. Was I about to faint? I gripped the table harder, my knuckles white. Emily leaned closer, her voice trembling but determined. "You owe me the truth, Mum. Tell me who he is. Tell me who my real father is, before I walk out of here and never look back." The shareholders' whispers grew louder, drowning my thoughts. My whole body shook. I could feel every pair of eyes drilling into me, waiting, hungering for the scandal to unfold. And just as I opened my mouth to speak, the heavy wooden doors of the meeting room creaked open behind us. Someone walked in. Everyone turned, and when I saw the man who entered, my heart nearly stopped. Because it was him, the very man I had tried to erase from history. The moment the doors creaked open, time itself seemed to slow down. My breath caught in my throat as the tall figure stepped into the room. His silver hair glistened under the chandelier's light, and though his face had aged, there was no mistaking him. It was Richard Lawson. The very man I thought I had buried in the graveyard of my past. The man I had sworn Emily would never know about. The room erupted in whispers. Investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some recognized him immediately, others leaned toward their neighbors, whispering in confusion. My daughter's eyes widened, her lips parting as if to speak, but she couldn't. I wanted to sink through the floor. 50 years had passed since I last saw Richard. The last time he had walked out of my life, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a broken heart and raise a child alone. I had convinced myself he'd disappeared for good. I had built walls, built a life, built lies to keep the truth from Emily. And now here he was, walking straight toward us, as if summoned by her desperate cry for answers. "Janet," he said softly, his voice calm but heavy with years of unspoken words. My entire body trembled. My mouth went dry. I couldn't even say his name. Emily looked from me to him, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "Mum," she whispered, pointing at him, her voice almost breaking. Is this him?" My heart twisted. The shareholders, Those greedy, cold-eyed men and women were leaning forward, savouring every second of my humiliation. My daughter's demand had turned our family's deepest wound into a public spectacle. "Emily, please," I whispered, fighting to keep my composure. "Not here, not now." But she shook her head fiercely, her eyes wet with tears. "No, Mum, I deserve to know. I've lived my whole life believing a lie. Tell me, who is he?" Richard's gaze never left mine. For a brief second, I saw regret in his eyes, maybe even sorrow. He cleared his throat as if ready to speak. Panic surged through me. My heart hammered against my ribs. "No," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "Not another word, Richard." The room froze again. Even Emily looked startled by the venom in my tone. But deep inside, I was breaking. Because I knew, if he opened his mouth now, the truth I had fought so hard to protect would spill into the open like poison. I glanced at the shareholders, then back at my daughter. My hands shook so badly that I had to grip the chair beside me just to stay standing. Richard's lips parted, his voice firm. "She deserves the truth, Janet. You've hidden it long enough." Emily gasped, turning back to me, her face pale with shock. I stumbled backward, my chest tightening again, my vision blurring. For a moment I thought I'd lose my balance completely. And then, before I could react, Emily did something that left the entire room stunned. She turned away from me and rushed straight into Richard's arms. The sound of her sobbing against his chest echoed in my ears, each sob tearing me apart from the inside. And just when I thought my heart couldn't bear any more, Richard looked up at me over Emily's shoulder. With eyes full of pain and defiance, he said words that made the ground shift beneath me. "She knows, Janet. She's always known. She knows, Janet. She's always known." Those words slammed into me like a thunderclap. My knees went weak, and for the first time in decades, I had no defense, no excuse, no shield to hide behind. "What do you mean?" My voice cracked, thin and brittle like glass about to shatter. Emily pulled back slightly from Richard's embrace, her tear-streaked face glowing under the harsh boardroom lights. Her eyes met mine, and they weren't the eyes of my little girl anymore. They were the eyes of a woman who had been carrying a wound I never knew existed. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling. "I've suspected for years. The late-night phone calls when you thought I was asleep. The way you always flinched when Dad's name came up. The photograph I found in your old diary. The one of you and him." She turned to look at Richard, then back at me. "I put it all together. I just wanted you to admit it." Gasps filled the room like echoes in a cave. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. My mind screamed at me to speak, to explain, to justify. But what explanation could I possibly give? That I had loved a man I could never marry. That I had been forced to choose between the safety of a stable marriage and the truth of my heart. The weight of my secrets pressed down on me, suffocating. "Emily," I whispered, almost pleading. "I did it to protect you." Her jaw tightened. "Protect me? From what, Mum? From him?" She gestured toward Richard, who stood silently, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. My lips trembled. Memories came flooding back. Richard's warm smile, his strong hands, the promises he made under the stars when we were young, the promises that shattered when he disappeared. I forced myself to look at him. "You left me," I spat, the old wound ripping open. "You walked away, Richard. Don't you dare stand here pretending you're some kind of saviour." The shareholders shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was a battlefield, and I was losing ground. Richard's face darkened with guilt. "I left because I was forced to, Janet. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day." Emily covered her mouth, her eyes wide. "Forced? What do you mean, forced?" My chest heaved. The truth I had buried for 60 years clawed its way to the surface. I shook my head violently. "No, don't. Not here." But Richard ignored me. He turned to Emily, his voice heavy with sorrow. Your mother never told you because she was protecting you. From my family. My father threatened her life if she didn't let me go. He would have destroyed her, destroyed both of you. The room fell silent again, the weight of his words crushing us all. Emily staggered back, her face pale as snow. I wanted to scream, to beg him to stop dragging the past into the light, to keep the shame buried where it belonged. But before I could gather my thoughts, Emily's voice rang out again, shaking, but laced with fire. So all these years, I was living a lie? And you both knew? You both chose silence over me? Tears spilled down my cheeks. Emily, please, She raised her hand, cutting me off. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her whole body trembling with rage. Then, without warning, she spun around and shouted at the shareholders. Ladies and gentlemen, I have proof. Proof that everything my mother built, this entire empire, wasn't hers alone. And I'm going to show you right now. The room exploded in chaos. Investors stood from their seats, voices colliding, papers scattering. My pulse thundered in my ears. Proof? What proof could she possibly have? My daughter reached into her bag, pulled out a thick envelope and slammed it down on the polished table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Here, she said, glaring at me with a mixture of pain and triumph. The truth you've been hiding all my life. My stomach dropped, because I knew exactly what was inside that envelope. And if she opened it here, in front of everyone, my entire world would crumble to dust. The envelope sat on the table like a ticking time bomb. I could feel the blood drain from my face as Emily's fingers brushed the flap, ready to tear it open. Emily, stop! My voice rang out, shaking but sharp enough to cut through the noise. The shareholders froze, their curiosity gnawing at them. Some leaned forward, hungry for the scandal. Others exchanged nervous glances, unsure if they should even be here for what was about to unfold. But my daughter didn't stop. Her chin lifted, stubborn just like her father's. Her green eyes, so much like his, burned with fire. For years you controlled the story, Mum, she said, her voice trembling yet fierce. You told me what to believe, what not to question, but I'm done living in your lies. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling as I reached across the table. Please, Emily, not like this. Not in front of them. Her laugh was short, bitter. Why not? Isn't this what you've always feared? The truth? Let them all hear it. Let the world know what kind of woman you really are. The pain in her words sliced through me. I could handle the whispers of strangers, even the judgment of investors. But hearing my daughter, my own flesh and blood, call me a liar in front of the world, it was more than I could bear. Richard shifted uneasily beside her. Emily, he said gently, placing a hand on her arm. Think about this. Once you open that envelope, there's no going back. She yanked her arm away. I've thought about this my whole life. The room fell into an eerie silence. Even the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner sounded like a drumbeat of doom. Finally, with trembling fingers, Emily tore the envelope open. Papers spilled across the table, the sound of rustling echoing like thunder in my ears. She spread them out one by one, birth certificates, old letters, faded photographs. Gasps erupted from the shareholders as their eyes darted over the pages. Emily, I whispered, my throat tightening. She picked up one of the letters and held it high. This, she said, her voice quivering, is proof. Proof that my mother lied about everything. Proof that the fortune she built, the company she controls, wasn't hers alone. It was partly his. She pointed at Richard. My real father. The room erupted in chaos. Shouts overlapped, questions fired like bullets. Is this true? Did she falsify records? What does this mean for the company? I couldn't breathe. My world was collapsing before my eyes. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every lie I told to keep Emily safe. It was unravelling in front of strangers. Emily turned back to me, her voice breaking now. Why, Mum? Why didn't you just tell me? Do you know what it's like to grow up feeling like something was missing? To feel like a part of you was a ghost?" Tears blurred my vision. My body shook as I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Richard stepped forward, his voice steady. "Because she was protecting you, Emily. Protecting us both. My family would have destroyed everything if the truth had come out back then." Emily's lips quivered. "And what about now? What about me? Did anyone ever think about how I felt?" The weight of her pain crushed me. I wanted to reach for her, to hold her like I used to when she was little. But I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't my little girl anymore. The shareholders were on edge, whispering among themselves, some already pulling out their phones, no doubt ready to leak this to the press. My chest burned with panic. I slammed my palm on the table, silencing the room. "Enough!" my voice thundered, stronger than I knew I still had. "If you want the truth, you'll have it. But it won't come from stolen letters or half-read pages. It will come from me." Emily stared at me, her face streaked with tears, her hands shaking as she clutched the papers. The room fell into silence again, every eye on me. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, but I knew this was the moment I couldn't escape. I drew a deep, shaky breath, looked at my daughter, and said the words I had never dared to speak aloud in over 60 years. "Your father is still alive." The room gasped as one. Emily staggered back, her papers fluttering to the floor. And then, before anyone could react, the double doors slammed open again, and a voice I thought I'd never hear again rang out. "She doesn't have to tell you who I am. I'll do it myself. She doesn't have to tell you who I am. I'll do it myself." The voice echoed like thunder through the boardroom. Heads snapped toward the door. My breath hitched in my throat. And then he stepped inside. The years had carved lines into his face, but his presence was still commanding. Broad shoulders, piercing blue eyes, and that unmistakable aura of a man who once held my entire heart in his hands. It was Michael Sterling, the man I had sworn Emily would never meet, the man I had buried under layers of lies and silence. The shareholders whispered in shock, some even standing to get a better look. Emily's face drained of colour, her trembling hands clutching the edge of the table for support. "Mom," she whispered, her voice fragile. "Is this him?" My knees threatened to buckle. I nodded once, tears spilling down my cheeks. Michael's gaze locked on Emily. For a moment, all the tension in the room faded, and it was just the two of them, the father and the daughter who had been separated by decades of silence. His voice broke when he finally spoke. "Emily, I've waited a lifetime to see you." Her chest rose and fell quickly, her breath shaky. She took a hesitant step toward him, then stopped, her green eyes wide with both longing and fury. You knew. You knew about me all these years." Michael's face crumpled. "Yes, I knew. But your mother—" "Don't you dare put this on her," Emily snapped, her voice trembling. "You could have fought for me. You could have come. You could have—" Her words dissolved into sobs. The room was unbearably tense. Even the seasoned investors who had weathered financial storms looked shaken, shifting in their seats, unsure whether to look away or keep watching the family unravel. Richard, still standing close to Emily, clenched his jaw, his fists tightening at his sides. His voice was low but filled with rage. "You don't get to walk in here after all these years and pretend to care. You left her. You left us." Michael's eyes darkened. "You don't know what I gave up, what I suffered. My family disowned me, destroyed my career, stripped me of everything because I refused to marry the woman they chose for me. Do you think I wanted to leave Janet? To leave my child?" The words pierced me. My heart twisted in agony. I had lived decades with my own version of the truth, but hearing his cut just as deep. Emily looked between us, her tears flowing freely. "So all of you, Mom, him, you—" She gestured at Richard. "You all knew and you let me grow up not knowing who I am. You lied to me every single day of my life." Her voice cracked like glass shattering. The silence that followed was unbearable. My chest ached with guilt. Every choice I made, choices I thought were protecting her, looked monstrous in her eyes. Suddenly, one of the shareholders, a balding man with a sharp nose, cleared his throat loudly. "This is all compelling, Mrs. Smith," he said, his tone laced with sarcasm. "But let's not forget we are in a stakeholders meeting. If what your daughter claims is true, then the legitimacy of your holdings and the company's succession plan are now in question." The boardroom buzzed again, investors whispering fiercely, some already scribbling notes, others tapping furiously on their phones. Emily turned to them, her tears drying into something sharper. "That's exactly why I came here today, to expose the lies, to show you the truth, and I won't stop until everything is out in the open." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice rising in panic. Emily's hands shook as she reached into her bag once more. This time, she pulled out not an envelope, but a flash drive. She held it high, her jaw set with determination. "This," she said coldly, "contains documents that prove everything, hidden bank transfers, falsified agreements, and the letters you thought I'd never find. By the time I'm finished, everyone in this room will know the whole story." I felt the air drain from my lungs, my vision blurred. I stumbled, nearly collapsing back into my chair, because I knew what was on that flash drive, and if Emily plugged it in, not only would my lies be exposed, but the one secret I had guarded with my very life, one darker than her father's identity, would finally be revealed. The tiny flash drive glinted under the chandelier's light, but to me it looked like a loaded gun. My heart thumped wildly as Emily held it between her fingers, her expression carved from pain and determination. "Emily," I whispered, reaching across the table, "please, don't do this." She shook her head, tears still clinging to her lashes but her jaw set firm. "No, Mom. This time the truth comes out. All of it." The shareholders shifted in their seats, eager for blood. Their greed was palpable. They wanted the scandal, the downfall, the story that would ripple through newspapers and ruin my legacy. Richard leaned in toward her, his voice low. "Emily, you don't have to go this far. Let's talk about it privately." But Emily pulled back, glaring at him. "Privately? No. I've been kept in the dark my whole life. I deserve to know, and so does everyone else." Michael, her real father, stood still, his face pale, his eyes fixed on me with a mixture of pity and anger. He knew, just as I did, that once she revealed what was on that flash drive, nothing would ever be the same again. I took a trembling breath, my chest tight. "Emily, please. If you open that, you'll unleash things even I can't take back." Her voice cracked. "Then maybe that's what needs to happen." Before I could stop her, she crossed the room to the projector, plugged in the flash drive, and clicked it into place. The big screen at the front of the boardroom flickered to life. The first document appeared. Gasps filled the room as my name flashed across it, alongside wire transfers, hidden accounts, and notes signed in my handwriting. Emily's voice shook as she read aloud. "To be transferred discreetly. Must never connect back to Sterling family." She turned to me, eyes wide and glassy. "Sterling, that's his name." She pointed at Michael. "You've been funneling money to his family for decades, haven't you?" The room erupted in chaos. Shareholders barked questions, some rising to their feet, others pulling out phones to capture the documents. My pulse roared in my ears. I wanted to scream, to rip the flash drive from the projector, to burn the evidence before it spread like wildfire. Instead, I stood frozen, my entire body trembling. "Emily," I choked out, "you don't understand. It wasn't for me. It was for you." Her voice broke, raw and jagged. "For me? How is lying to me my whole life supposed to be for me?" The screen changed again. This time, photographs filled the projection, grainy scans of letters and old photographs I thought I had destroyed. Letters from Michael, love notes, promises. And then, the one letter I prayed would never see the light of day appeared. My chest clenched. My vision swam. It was a confession. A letter I had written 60 years ago. And across the top, in my own handwriting, were the words that would destroy everything. Emily must never know the truth about her twin. The room went silent. Emily staggered back, her lips trembling. What? Gasps rippled through the shareholders. Richard's face went pale. Michael's hand flew to his mouth, and I, standing at the centre of the chaos, felt my entire world collapse as my daughter's voice broke the silence with a scream that cut through my soul. I have a twin! I have a twin! Emily's scream rattled the chandelier above us. Her voice cracked with fury, betrayal, and disbelief. The shareholders gasped louder, some covering their mouths, others whispering furiously to one another as though they had stumbled into a soap opera rather than a corporate meeting. I froze. My heart thumped so violently I thought I might collapse. My lips parted, but no words came. "Mum!" Emily's voice trembled, her body shaking as she slammed her palms on the table. "Tell me right now, where is my twin? Who is it? Why did you hide them from me?" I staggered back, pressing a trembling hand against my chest. The letter on the screen burned into my mind, those cursed words I had written all those years ago. Words meant to protect, but now weaponized against me. Michael stepped forward, his face pale. His voice was tight with horror. "Janet, you told me." "Stop!" I snapped, my voice cracking. "Not here, not like this." But Emily's sob cut me like a knife. All my life I thought the emptiness I felt was me being broken, but it wasn't me. It was you. You stole a part of me, my own blood, and you buried it. The room erupted again, voices colliding, questions, accusations, investors demanding explanations. Richard slammed his hand on the table, his voice booming. "Enough of this circus. Janet, tell her the truth, right now." I shook my head violently, tears spilling down my cheeks. "No. I can't." But Emily's eyes, those piercing green eyes, held me captive. For the first time, she looked at me, not as her mother, but as a stranger. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling, "if you don't tell me the truth this second, I will walk out of this room and never come back." My knees buckled. I clutched the chair to steady myself. Every muscle in my body screamed with the weight of 60 years of silence. Finally, with a broken sob, I whispered the words I had buried in the deepest corner of my soul. "You had a brother, Emily. A twin brother." The room gasped as though the air had been sucked out of it. Emily's hand flew to her mouth, her tears spilling freely. Michael's face crumpled in anguish. "Janet, you told me he died." I shook my head, trembling. I thought he would be safer if the world believed that. If you believed that. They were going to take him from me, Michael. Your family swore they would destroy him, that he would never survive under the Sterling name. I had to hide him. I had no choice. Emily staggered backward, her back hitting the wall. "So he's alive. My twin is alive." My silence was her answer. Her breath quickened, her eyes wild. "Where is he, Mom? Where is my brother?" I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, the doors to the boardroom burst open once again. All heads turned, and there, framed in the doorway, stood a man, tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing green eyes that mirrored Emily's. His expression was hard, his jaw tight, but the resemblance was unmistakable. The room erupted into chaos. Emily gasped, her hands flying to her chest. "Oh my God!" The man stepped forward, his voice cold, cutting through the pandemonium like steel. "My name is Ethan, and I'm the twin she never wanted you to know about." "My name is Ethan, and I'm the twin she never wanted you to know about." The room fell into stunned silence. Even the air seemed to stop moving. All eyes locked on the tall man standing in the doorway, his broad frame casting a shadow across the polished floor. Emily's knees buckled. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice quivering. "You're real?" He smirked bitterly. "As real as the lies she told to keep me away from you." Every word felt like a dagger in my chest. My breath caught, and I stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the table. My secrets, the ones I fought to the death to bury, were rising from the grave one by one. Richard stared at Ethan in disbelief. "This can't be possible. You—" But Michael's voice trembled as he cut in. "It's him. I'd know those eyes anywhere." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Yes, father. I bet you would." His voice dripped with sarcasm, the word father rolling off his tongue like venom. Emily's tears streamed down her cheeks as she inched toward him. "All this time, I thought I was alone. I thought something was missing inside me, and it was you. It was always you." Ethan's gaze softened for the briefest moment as he looked at her, but then he turned back to me, his expression hardening into steel. "Do you know where I grew up, Mother? Do you know what kind of life I had?" I shook my head violently, tears spilling. "Ethan, I grew up in foster homes," he snapped, shuffled from one broken family to the next. "I was told my mother abandoned me, that I wasn't wanted. I clawed my way through life alone while you sat here building an empire, hiding me like some dirty secret." Gasps rippled through the shareholders. Some leaned forward, fascinated. Others whispered, scandal spreading like wildfire through the room. Emily's sobs turned into cries. She covered her face with her hands. "Mom, how could you? How could you let him suffer like that?" My chest heaved. My heart felt like it was being ripped apart. "I did it to protect him," I whispered desperately. "If they knew he existed, Michael's family, the Sterlings, they would have destroyed him. They would have destroyed both of you." Ethan's eyes burned with fury. "And instead you destroyed us yourself." The words cut me deeper than any blade. Michael stepped forward, his face twisted in pain. "Ethan, if I had known, if she had told me, you wouldn't have suffered like that. I would have found you. I would have—" Ethan raised a hand sharply, silencing him. "Save your excuses. Neither of you wanted me. But don't worry." His voice dropped lower, darker. "I didn't come here today just to meet my sister. I came here for what I'm owed." The shareholders shifted, whispers rising like static. "Owed," one of them murmured. Ethan stepped into the room fully now, his presence overwhelming, his shadow stretching across the table. His eyes locked onto me, cold and unyielding. "You built this empire on lies," he said, his voice steady, terrifyingly calm. "And now, everything you tried to keep from me, every cent, every title, every piece of power, half of it belongs to me, and I've already taken steps to claim it." The room erupted. Emily gasped. Michael staggered back. Richard's face went pale. And me? I could barely stand. My whole body trembled as I realized the truth. Ethan hadn't just come for answers, he had come for war, and judging by the folder he now placed on the table in front of the shareholders, he had the proof to take it all. Ethan dropped the thick folder on the table, the sound echoing through the boardroom like a gavel. Papers spilled across the polished wood, sliding toward the shareholders who leaned in, eager to devour the scandal. "This," Ethan said coldly, "is evidence. Evidence that I am the rightful heir to half of everything in this room, half of the company, half of the estate, half of her fortune." His eyes locked on me, sharp as daggers. Emily stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, what are you saying?" He glanced at her, his tone softening only slightly. "I'm saying we've both been robbed, Emily. You of the truth and me of my life. But I'm not here to play victim. I'm here to take what I'm owed." The shareholders erupted with questions. Is this legitimate? Does he have a claim? What does this mean for succession? Michael's face went pale. He staggered forward, his voice trembling. "Ethan, son, listen to me. Don't call me that." Ethan's roar shook the walls, his fists clenched, his chest heaving. "You don't get to be my father now, after decades of silence. You don't get to show up when it's convenient." The room froze again. His rage was volcanic, his pain undeniable. Emily stepped forward, her eyes wet with confusion. "Ethan, please. I don't care about the company or the money. I just want my brother. I just want to know you." For the first time, Ethan's eyes softened, but it was fleeting. He turned back to the shareholders, his jaw tightening. "But that's the difference between you and me, Emily. You want family. I want justice." He opened the folder, pulling out document after document. DNA tests proving his relation, notarized affidavits, legal claims already filed. Gasps filled the room. Shareholders scribbled notes, some whispering about hostile takeovers, others already calculating how the scandal could benefit them. Richard leaned across the table, his face red with fury. "You'll tear this company apart with your vengeance. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Ethan's smirk was ice cold. "I know exactly what I'm doing." I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. The walls seemed to close around me as I realized the enormity of what was happening. Not only had my daughter discovered the truth, but now, the son I had tried to protect was about to dismantle everything I had built with my own hands. Emily's voice cracked, desperate. "Ethan, please, don't do this. We can find another way. We can heal. We can be a family again." He turned to her, his expression unreadable. For a moment the room held its breath, waiting to see if her plea had reached him. But then he said, in a voice so calm it chilled me to the bone, "It's too late for family. By tomorrow morning, Janet Smith will no longer be the head of this empire." The shareholders gasped again, some already nodding, others whispering, "This could work." Emily's knees buckled, her hand clutching the table for support. You're dethroning her?" Ethan's eyes flickered to mine, filled with icy rage. "Not dethroning, Emily. Exposing. She doesn't deserve the power she's hoarded. She doesn't deserve to sit on the throne of lies." Tears blurred my vision. My whole body trembled. "Ethan, please. I did it for you. For both of you. I carried the burden so you wouldn't have to—" He cut me off with a bitter laugh. "You carried it. No, Mother. You buried it. And now I'm here to dig it all up." He slammed the final document on the table. A court order. The shareholders surged forward, their eyes wide, their voices colliding in a storm of greed and speculation. Emily collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Michael gripped the back of another chair, his knuckles white, his face a mask of regret. And me? I stood there, paralyzed, as my entire world fell apart. Ethan leaned closer, his voice low, meant only for me. "Tomorrow the world will know everything. Your empire, your lies, your sins." He straightened, turned to the room and declared in a voice of steel, "By this time tomorrow, Janet Smith will be nothing but a memory." The boardroom crackled with tension, the weight of Ethan's words hanging heavy in the air. Shareholders whispered in frantic tones, the projector still flashing documents that painted me as a liar, a thief, and a fraud. My chest felt like it was caving in. My life's work, my reputation, my family. It was all crumbling before my eyes. Emily sat slumped in her chair, her face pale, her tears soaking the papers she had brought. She couldn't even look at me. Ethan stood tall, triumphant, his green eyes burning with the fire of vengeance. "Tomorrow," he said coldly, "the world will know who I am. The son you cast aside, the rightful heir, and when I'm done you won't even have a seat at this table." The shareholders stirred, some already nodding in approval. Greed was written on their faces. They smelled blood and they didn't care whose family they destroyed to taste it. "Enough," I whispered, though my voice cracked. Ethan ignored me. I lifted my head, my old bones trembling but my voice growing stronger. "Enough." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. My body shook, but I stood tall, shoulders back, tears streaming down my cheeks. "You think you're the only one who suffered, Ethan? You think I didn't suffer every single day of my life, carrying secrets so heavy they nearly crushed me? You think I enjoyed hiding you, lying to your sister, burying my own heart? Ethan's jaw clenched, but his eyes flickered with uncertainty. I turned to Emily, my voice breaking. I did it for you. Both of you. Michael's family was ruthless. They swore they would destroy any child not born into their chosen marriage. They threatened to take Ethan from me, to end him before he even had a chance. So I did the only thing I could. I gave him up to save him. I lived with the guilt every day, while you looked at me with those eyes and wondered why I was so afraid of losing you. Emily's sobs quieted. She stared at me, her chest rising and falling. I turned back to Ethan. Yes, I failed you. Yes, I let you suffer. But don't you dare believe it was because I didn't love you. I loved you enough to destroy myself if it meant you would live. I loved you enough to carry 60 years of shame, just to keep you breathing. Ethan's fists trembled at his sides. His eyes glistened, though he tried to hide it. The room was silent, the shareholders leaning forward as if they were watching something far more important than money. Michael stepped forward, his voice low but firm. Ethan, you have every right to be angry. But if you destroy her, you destroy yourself too. You can take the company, the money, the legacy, but it won't heal you. Only truth can do that. Only forgiveness. Ethan's chest heaved. His glare softened as he looked at Emily, her tear-streaked face staring back at him with a mixture of pain and longing. I waited my whole life to know I wasn't alone. Emily whispered. Don't take that away from me now. Don't turn this into hate. Please, Ethan, be my brother. Don't be my enemy. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Ethan's jaw clenched, his eyes flickering between me, Michael, and Emily. His breathing grew ragged. Finally, he slammed the folder shut with a thud. The shareholders jumped. Ethan's voice was low, trembling. This isn't over, but I won't destroy her. Not yet. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Ethan turned to me, his gaze sharp but no longer burning with the same fire. You don't get my forgiveness, Mother. Not now, maybe not ever, but you will face me. You will face us, and you will tell the whole truth. He turned and walked out, the doors slamming shut behind him. The room erupted in noise again, shareholders shouting, investors demanding answers. But none of it mattered. Not the company, not the money, not the empire. Because all I could hear was the echo of Ethan's voice, and the sound of Emily's sob as she whispered almost to herself, At least now, I know who I am. I closed my eyes, my heart heavy but strangely lighter than it had been in decades. The empire might crumble. The world might know my shame. But for the first time the truth was no longer buried, and maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of healing.